All right, Algebra 1 students, we're back in our absolute value function syllabus, and we're going to check off Tier 2 Lesson 8, Domain and Range. And here we find Tier 2 Lesson 8, Domain and Range from a table. It says find the domain and range for the equation below on this f of x. How do we find domain and range? We take our input values, which are our domain values, and we plug it in, and we get our y values. So if I plug input -6 in, I get -6 plus 4, which is -2. The absolute value of -2 is 2. And then I have this negative out here. So that makes that 2 a -2. So it's -2 minus 2, which equals -4. If I plug -5 in, I get -5 plus 4, which is -1. The absolute value of -1 is 1. And then this negative out here makes that 1 a -1. And it's -1 minus 2, which equals -3. Then I have -4. If I plug that in, I get -4 plus 4, which is 0. Absolute value of 0 is 0. Negative doesn't affect 0, so then it's 0 minus 2, which gives me -2. And I put -3 in, I get -3 plus 4, which is +1. The absolute value of +1 is 1, but with that negative out in front, that makes it a -1. -1 minus 2 equals -3. And then if I put in -2, I get -2 plus 4, which gives me 2. The absolute value of 2 is 2. With that negative out in front, it's -2 minus 2 gives me -4. I now have values for my domain, and I have values for my range. There's two ways to look at this. That this is an absolute value function that goes on forever, and it looks like this in a sketch. And I know that my domain is going to be from -infinity to +infinity, and that my range is going to be from -infinity, because it starts down here with all these y values down here, and it goes up and it stops at the vertex. And we know that the value on the vertex is -4, -2. We know that that's the vertex from previous lessons. So we know that the top end of the range here is -2. So we can look at it that way. Or we want to use set builder notation. We could say that the domain is equal to -6, -5, -4, -3, -2, and my range is equal to -4, -3, -2, and I don't have to put the other -3 or the other -4 in there because they're already in the set. Again, if we go over here with this other function, we can real quickly do a little sketch here. That's the type of sketch that I have. I know that my vertex is right here, and my vertex is going to be -4, -2, just like before. To save time, I will fill out the table quickly, and you can pause the video and copy it. Again, I can write my domain, and I know unless it's restricted on an absolute value, it's going to be -infinity to infinity. And I know that my range is going to be all the possible y values, which I got all this from infinity all the way down to -2, but we read it from -2 up to infinity. So I'm going to be from -2 to infinity. That's one way to understand it. Or I can write it in set builder notation to where my domain is equal to -6, -5, -4, -3, -2, and my range is equal to 0, -1, -2. And again, I don't have to do those two. Now there is one thing I want you to notice, and this is how you can tell the domain and range from a table. Notice that here on this table right here, the y values are getting bigger, and at the vertex they stop and they begin to get smaller again, smaller and smaller and smaller. So we know that that is the very last point, this 2, the highest positive point that our range can be. And that's in the 2 in our set builder notation is the highest possible point, and then also in our more general notation is the highest possible point. And again over here, we have that same thing happening. In this equation right here, we're getting smaller and we're getting smaller, and boom, at -2, we stop getting smaller and we start getting bigger again. Back to -1, back to 0. So we know that this -2 is our lowest possible value. And if you look, it's the lowest possible value in our set builder notation. And then it's also the low point of our range. in our general notation. I'm sorry guys that you couldn't see this stuff while I was writing. I didn't realize that. So I'll scroll this up so that you get a better view of the stuff down here that I was writing.